Good morning. We have some interesting stories today. So last night, I go swimming with my daughter. Swimming around, we probably swam around for at least 30 minutes before I discovered at the very bottom of the deep end, there was this bright yellow grasshopper. It looks cool. My daughter likes to inspect bugs and learn about new bugs. And this was cool looking, so I grabbed it, set it on the side of the pool. We checked it out. She thought it was pretty, left it alone. Well, a couple hours later, we're all outside, and I was telling her grandparents about this cool grasshopper. And I went to pick it up to show them, and it's moving. It just starts moving. I'm like, dude, you were at the bottom of a swimming pool for at least 30 minutes before I discovered you. There's no telling how long prior to that. It dries out and just starts moving around. So I'm looking up, grasshoppers and survival and how long can, do they drown? And yes, they do. And very short amount of time, mind you. Now I did read that there's like hair worms. It's like a parasite that, can infect grasshoppers. It makes grasshoppers actually seek out water to drown themselves so that the parasite can get back into water and as an adult and get out. It's kind of hard to know if that has anything to do with the movement. I actually went to find the grasshopper this morning because once it was moving, I put it in one of the garden sections. It's no longer there, so and not anywhere near the immediate area. Like, that's kind of bizarre coming back to life story. Well, there was a post that I commented on. It was like, what did God teach you during this quarantine? And I posted, I learned to love myself. Like that's a big accomplishment, a big lesson. Anyway, she had commented or sent me a message asking if we could chat sometime. So this morning, her and another girl, they were both on, I guess, missionaries. We had a lovely conversation this morning, and I actually told them that story. They thought that was spectacular. I told them I have 2 daughters. They asked about my daughters, and I told them about my oldest daughter that lives in Florida, and that I've actually missed out on a lot of her life. We stay in touch, and I guess you could say we have a good relationship. I feel like it could be more time spent together. But anyway, I'm telling them that story, and I was like, well, the beginning of her story is actually pretty spectacular. So I thought I'd share that since we're on this, talking about God and kind of miracles and things that happen. But after telling the story, they had brought up hearing some similar stories that made me want to tell this story to see if anyone else has heard a story or they have their own story. I'd love to hear it. So this goes back 2002. I finished my basic training in the Air Force in San Antonio. I go to Mississippi and I meet this guy. I guess I should leave names out, but this guy becomes my best friend. And he was dating this girl that I had briefly met, and they were both air traffic controllers. She ended up not making it through the training and went back to San Antonio to get a new job. So I briefly met her, and then me and him become best friends. He gets orders to Delaware. I get orders to, I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina, I don't remember which one. And in class, in your career field in that class, they allow you to actually swap bases with anyone else in your class. So this girl who also had Delaware, she was from either North or South Carolina, and I was like, hey, my best friend's going to Delaware. He's from New York. That sounds awesome. Do you want to trade bases? And she's like, yeah. So I'm like, this is so cool. I get to go to Delaware, be with my best friend. And that turned out to be an awesome journey in many ways, especially having somebody from New York to go travel around with and kind of show me the ropes and introduce me to his his friends. That was awesome. So moving forward, I'm there for a few months, and it turns out Desiree, told her name, she had gotten a new job and got stationed in Delaware. So, sorry, I got pop-ups coming up on my screen. So a few months later, she gets stationed in Delaware, and then I guess they started dating again. We all become best friends, and then months go on. There comes a point where they had broken up, and me and her still hang out all the time. She's very attractive, and we're all close. And I'd asked my friend, I said, you know how close we are. If something were to happen, if one thing led to another, would you be upset if something happened? I just feel like if y'all aren't together, there could be a scenario that this could happen. And I just want to know how you feel about it. And he gave me his blessing. He's like, nah, it's all good. If something happens, it happens. I'm okay with that. So at one point, her and I take a trip down to Ocean City, Maryland, just one of those spontaneous adventures. Had a great time, and it was a one thing led to another kind of night, and it turned into like a very romantic kind of evening. Now, here's where the story really begins. So about a week after that, I had to leave to Scotts Air Force Base, Illinois. Yes. And I'm staying at the hotel on base, old hotel. Now, while I'm there, I get a call from both of them, and they told me that they decided to get back together, and everybody's aware of what happened between us. So we all just get things on the table. Everybody's okay with everything. Nobody has any ill feelings. So everything's good, right? So about several days later after that conversation, because I was only in Illinois for 2.5 weeks, so I'm there for about a week and a half at this point, and I have one of those weird dreams, like the chaotic, crazy dreams, right? And I wake up in the middle of the night. It's probably 3 in the morning or so, and I'm leaning up in my bed up on my elbow, and I'm looking off towards the door, and there's light from the hallway coming into my room. So I'm sitting on my bed, staring off towards the light, just reflecting on this wild dream I just had. Now, as I'm doing so, there appears to be this orb of light between me and the door. Now, at first I think I just have an eye booger, so I'm rubbing my eye, thinking there's no way. I believe in ghosts, I always have. Never seen one, and now I'm seeing this light. So I'm rubbing my eye and I'm leaning forward. Next thing I know, there's a woman. I'm talking like a full woman standing at the edge of my bed, in between the two twin beds, at the edge, just standing there. And she's like, the way she's holding her arms, it looks like she's holding a baby. Still here. Now, it's not demonic. So I'm not feeling scared or frightened. I'm actually excited. So I'm like, I believe in ghosts. I look away, I look back, I look away, I look back. I turn the light on, and when I turned the light on, she was gone. Next day, I tell everyone in class. Most people are laughing at me. After lunch, the teacher comes back and says that, hey, I mentioned your story, and people said that they have heard people reporting seeing ghosts in that hotel. So now everybody's taking it more seriously. So let's fast forward. About 3 months later, roughly, I didn't have a car at the time, so my daughter's mom calls me and she's like, hey, we need to catch up. I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm gonna come pick you up. She does. And she's like, hey, I'm pregnant. Naturally, I'm like, am I the father? and at this point, she's still dating, my buddy again, and she's like madly in love with him. He's just one of those lovable guys, right? So I get it. But she's almost offended I'd even ask her that, So I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Well, she wanted him to marry her, and at first he agreed. Then he was feeling like pressured into this. He wasn't sure if this is what he wanted. So then he backs out. He's like, no, I don't want to do this. So a woman in the military, if they're pregnant, no questions asked, they can get out of the military. So she does, and she goes down to Tampa, Florida. So she's about 8 months pregnant. You know, we stay in touch. We're not talking all the time, but we stay in touch. So when she's about 8 months pregnant, I remember calling her, and anytime, so let me back up. I was having intuitions that was leading me to believe that this is my child. And these feelings, these intuitive feelings were growing stronger and stronger as time went on. Now, anytime I brought it up, she'd get upset. Like, there's just no way that there's no way, right? She'd get upset. So she's 8 months pregnant, living in Tampa, and I called her and I was like, look, you're a very intuitive person. You know, you're very spiritual. So I'm not sure why you keep denying when I tell you about these feelings I'm having. At this point, they're so strong. They're happening when I'm awake, when I'm asleep. I can't deny these feelings. And she's like, well, I'm starting to have them too. So I'm like, okay, now we're talking. So let's fast forward. 1 month after my daughter was born, a hurricane hits Delaware. You don't hear about hurricanes hitting the Northeast very often. And I work inside of a command center, so we run the mission, right? So 2 people from my unit have to go somewhere to run the missions while the hurricane passes. And it just so happens to be in Tampa, Florida. And I actually wasn't even a part of the mission. I got a call last minute asking if I can be ready in an hour. I was ready in 30 minutes. You better believe that. That's actually how I met my child. I remember one of my buddies that was down there. He saw her. I asked my coworker to let me work the 12-hour day shift so I could spend time with him at night, and she agreed. And then we had dinner. My buddy saw her and was like, "Dude, that is totally your kid." You know, a few months later, she looked exactly like me. So, and we did a paternity test just to be sure, which was kind of laughable how much she looked like me, and she was definitely my child. But when in retrospect, I'm like, that's so wild that like a week after, about a week and a half after she was conceived, I see a ghost of a woman holding a baby, and then a month after she's born, a hurricane sends me down to meet her. It seems awfully bizarre. So when I told that story to these ladies this morning, they had mentioned a story of that I guess that seems to be a common thing, like at least for women, that there was a woman specifically that was that didn't know she was pregnant, had a ghost of a boy like waking her up. And I don't know if she called it a ghost, but a little boy was like a drummer boy, I think she said, was like waking her up. And then like a few weeks later she found out she was pregnant, and then she ended up having a boy. So that made me want to tell this story to find out, like, does anyone else have these stories? You know, I feel, whether you believe in ghosts or not, I know what happened to me. And when I've talked to atheist friends that are like, I think you hallucinated. I believe that you believe what you saw. I'm like, I've been waking up for 19 years at the time. I've never hallucinated a person or a ghost or anything. And then now all of a sudden I'm doing that. It just didn't seem plausible to me. So I feel fortunate to have a story like that. I saw a ghost of a woman holding a baby a week and a half after my daughter was conceived. And a month after she was born, living in another state, not even sure that she was mine, a hurricane sends me down to meet her. You know, it's like the universe was on a grand scale, like it brought us together. It's quite wild. All right, 13 minutes, it's a long one. Longest video I've done yet, so I'll wrap it up. Have you heard of stories like this? Have you had a story with something like this that has happened to you? Something that seems that there's synchronicities in the universe that brought things together? Please share, comment, post a video, tag me in it. I would love to hear stories that might be similar to this. Have a great day.